Welcome to Module 3, Serving Persons with Disabilities Using Personal Supports, part of the Accessible Service e-learning course for the Manitoba Post-Secondary Institutions Network. In this module, we will learn about types of service animals, support persons, and personal assistive devices. We'll learn about best practices when interacting with persons with disabilities accompanied by a service animal or support person, or who use personal assistive devices. And finally, we'll take a look at steps to take if someone with a disability is having difficulty accessing services at your campus. Many persons with disabilities rely on service animals, support persons, and personal assistive devices to help them carry out their daily activities on our campuses. In this first section, we will learn more about the role of service animals. In Manitoba, we follow the Human Rights Code definition, which states that a service animal means an animal that has been trained to provide assistance to a person with a disability that relates to that person's disability. Under the standard, an organization must recognize that a person who is disabled by a barrier may be accompanied by a service animal when they seek to obtain, use, or benefit from the organization's good or service. You may have observed or had experiences with service animals at your campus. Each animal is trained to perform various tasks and provide a range of services. When providing services to a person who is accompanied by a service animal, it is important to be aware of the following. Service animals are protected by the Human Rights Code and have the right to be wherever the public has access. Do not request that the owner leave the animal in a different location, such as outside of your office or classroom. If you are not certain that an animal is in fact a service animal, it is okay to ask the owner for verification. The owner is responsible for maintaining control over the animal at all times, and a particularly important point, avoid petting or talking to a service animal, as this distracts the animal from its tasks. In the following clip, Certified Master Trainer George Leonard will speak further to the importance of not interacting with a working animal.
If you're continually interrupting a service dog, and a service dog is getting benefit out of reacting from somebody else, that dog is at one point is going to stop doing some point of his job to the point that he should be doing it. So if you're continually trying to pat my dog, I'm at a facility, let's say I'm going to the U of M or U of W, like I went to the U of W, I went to Red River, and I have my service dog, and everybody's playing with him, and he's in jacket. Eventually he's going to start losing some of his skill set. Because when a dog has his jacket on, he's totally different than when the jacket's off. So I always tell people, when his jacket's on, really please just leave him alone. Just pretend he's not there. He's not going to bother you, and I'd really like you not to bother him, because this is my lifeline in order for me to be able to help.
You can learn more about service animals and Manitoba Service Animal Protection Act in the Resources and Sources section of this program.
Next, we will learn more about the role of support persons. Do you know anyone who has either been hired or chosen to help a person with a disability? This person is called a support person and may be a person support worker, a volunteer, a family member, spouse, or a friend of the person with the disability. A support person in some cases does not necessarily need to have special training or qualifications. Under the standard, our campus must allow a person who is disabled by a barrier to be accompanied by a support person when seeking to obtain or use or benefit from services or programs that we offer. They must be permitted to enter the premises together and have access to the support person at all times.
Support persons provide many types of assistance. Some of these include transportation, personal care assistance, guiding a person with a visual impairment, adaptive communication, so an example would be an intervener for someone who is deafblind, note-taking, scribe or reading services, which are usually coordinated by accessibility or library services offices, as well as interpretation.
When interacting and communicating with a person accompanied by a support person, here are some things to keep in mind. A person with a disability may not introduce you to their support person. If you're not sure, it's appropriate to ask, is this your interpreter or support person? Plan for the presence of support persons. For example, help facilitate the interpretation process by reserving seats of the persons who are deaf and by allocating space near the presenters for the interpreters. Speak to and look directly at the person with the disability, even though the message may be coming through the person who is the support person. For example, you may be asking the person, "What courses are you taking this year?" as opposed to looking at the interpreter and asking them, "Can you ask him what courses he's taking this year?" Remember, support persons, especially interpreters, communicate everything to the person. Avoid engaging in side conversations with the interpreters, thinking these won't be conveyed to the person with the disability. Let's learn more on these points from Richard Zimmer, coordinator at the Red River College in the area of Deaf Studies and American Sign Language and English interpretation.
So often when I'm speaking through an interpreter, and people who have never had that experience before, they will often look at the interpreter instead of making eye contact with me. Or they'll often say, tell him or tell Rick to do, those are things that aren't necessary. I am here in the room and speak as though it is a one-on-one conversation as you would with anybody else. So that's something that to keep in mind. The interpreter shouldn't be included in the communication. Their opinions shouldn't be asked upon or anything like that. Often people think that the interpreter is speaking for me, but I am actually speaking for myself and just going through an interpreter. And so the eye contact is important and that one-on-one dialogue is important.
Next, we will learn more about assistive devices. An assistive device is any device that is used, designed, made, or adapted to assist people in performing a particular task. Assistive devices enable persons with disabilities to do everyday tasks such as moving, communicating, reading, or lifting. Your post-secondary institution may also make available assistive devices to persons with disabilities for accessing its services. The standard requires that faculty, staff members, and student leaders who act on behalf of the institution be familiar with these devices and either provide assistance or know whom to contact about operating them upon request. Examples of assistive devices that may be available at your campus include lifts and stairwells, as pictured here, adjustable desks and workstations in classrooms or offices, assistive listening devices such as FM systems, manual wheelchairs or power scooters, as well as adaptive computer technology or software. The intent of this requirement is to ensure that those in direct contact with persons with disabilities know enough to respond to basic requests, such as using assistive listening devices or assisting with using a stairwell lift. You don't need to become an expert in the use of assistive devices. However, you do need to learn the names of those people on campus who have information and knowledge about the devices just in case you need to contact them. It is also about becoming aware of challenges that persons with disabilities have with accessibility on our campuses and helping to address those challenges.
In this module, we've learned about persons with disabilities and their use of supports such as assistive devices, service animals, and support persons. While we discussed some specifics to remember when interacting and communicating with a person with disabilities, we also learned that a respectful approach goes a long way towards providing accessible service in almost any situation. You may wish to keep a printed summary of the module for future reference. Persons with disabilities are one of the best resources for finding out what to do. Remember, you can't be an expert, and the simple question, "How can I help?" speaks volume to your commitment towards accessible service. This is an introductory course into the area of accessible services, and we encourage you to learn more on your own. In addition to accessing the resources provided with this course, please consider contacting your institution's accessibility coordinator or person in the accessibility services, equity, human rights, or human resources offices with your questions, comments, or interests. We'd like to thank the following people who have given generously of their time, expertise, and support and encouragement in the creation of this course.